welcome back to Midwest Chicana. We are so excited for this programming tonight. I'm Deanna Munoz. I am your host, and we are so glad to have everybody here tonight because we have some very, very important information and a very special guest to introduce to everybody who has a very important role in our community. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to Alissia Canady, who is running for Lieutenant Governor. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I got it right. As I mentioned to you before, I don't know a whole lot about government, and I'm excited to learn more. And I know we want to talk about how important voting is, especially in this election.
Well, thank you for having me first and foremost. And I think you know a lot more about government than what you realize. We're going to have a conversation about that. We'll test each other's knowledge and do a knowledge transfer so that everybody walks away a little bit more informed before they go vote this election cycle.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm hoping for too. So as everybody knows, if you've been here on this platform before, please send in some questions, comments. We will get them up here on the screen so that way Alissia can answer and we can get some more information out there in the community. So with that, let's get started. I just want to learn so much about you personally, if you don't mind. I want to know a little bit about you, about who you are, your story. Can you share a little bit of that with our viewers?
I can tell you all about that. So first, I'm going to say, for those who don't want the long version, go to my website, CanadyForMissouri.com. That's Canady, Canady like can. Yes, we can. Canady for Missouri, all spelled out, .com. Read the About Me section, all the cool stuff. But for this purposes, I'll tell you, I'm born and raised in Kansas City, graduated from Northeast High School. Shout out to Northeast, one of the most diverse high schools in Kansas City. And whoop, whoop, there's Laura. And after graduating high school, I wanted to be a lawyer, but I'm first generation college graduate. Being a lawyer was like way. I might as well said I wanted to go to the moon, because when I heard that law school cost $100,000, I was like, yeah, right. I didn't quite understand what higher ed, how you pay for it, what that was like, because nobody in my family had ever gone that route. So I went to work full time, and I worked full time for the next decade, started a couple businesses and put myself through undergrad, graduated from Park University, figured out how financial aid works, said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to law school, and went to law school and met Laura my first semester. Shout out to Laura. And the rest is history. There's a lot that happened in between there, but didn't really plan on coming back to Kansas City, to be honest, because once I left, growing up on the east side, having had the Kansas City experience, I just wanted so many more opportunities. And I felt limited in a lot of ways in Kansas City and thought I needed to go somewhere else to really spread my wings. But while I was in South Dakota, I met some amazing people, had some great life experiences, and helped me realize the disparity in how I grew up, the community I grew up in, versus how other people grew up. Now, granted, I was in rural South Dakota, so it's not like it was lifestyles of the rich and famous. But what I recognized was that the quality of life was a lot different. Because the first couple of weeks that I was there, it was really uncomfortable for me. Yep, a park pirate. That's right. It was uncomfortable for me to go to sleep because it was so quiet. There was no sirens, nobody arguing. It was, it was just very different. And that's when I recognized I grew up in a functioning dysfunction, like loving family, but very dysfunctional community situation. And everybody is not in that same boat. And I realized that this was before ACEs was a big deal, adverse childhood experience and all that. I just recognized that I made it out by the grace of God. And I wanted to come back and give more work to create more opportunities for other kids like me, to make sure they grew up in safe, stable neighborhoods. I thought I was going to come back and do commercial real estate and development, rehab houses, do infill building, new construction, commercial development projects. But the real estate market was trash when I graduated in 2010. And my mentor said, get some trial experience. And the best way for a young lawyer to get trial experience, either as a prosecutor or a public defender. The prosecutor's office was hiring. I said, I'll take it. I needed a job. And in that role, I worked with community on community justice, neighborhood prosecution to reduce violent crime. Well, I have a certificate in community economic development. So I was like, okay, well, I'll leverage this to be able to get to doing commercial real estate and development. So I had a small trial load where I'm advocating for victims, murder cases, property crimes, all that. And then I'm working with old ladies in the neighborhoods that want to get rid of the drug house down the street or are tired of gun violence that's happening at night. And I'm like, look at all these raggedy houses. We need to fix these houses up. But I realized why there had not been enough investment in the communities I grew up in, because the underlying conditions were such that people weren't willing to throw good money after bad. Who's going to want to buy a newly remodeled house in a community that they don't perceive as safe, or the schools are not quality? And so I began to work on these root issues to address violent crime. And it gave me perspective on why economic development was stagnated in certain communities and what we need to do to change it. So that's what led me to politics, because as a prosecutor, you can't arrest and prosecute your way out of these problems. You got to roll up your sleeves, work with these community stakeholders, work with all these other institutions, and overcome some of these challenges. And so that's how I got into politics, because of policy, and really wanted to make a difference for kids and families in communities I grew up in.
But time out.
Yeah,
there's a part of this story that I think, especially Deanna, on your podcast, really needs to be told. So, like,
Laura, introduce yourself first.
Am I muted?
We can hear you now.
Oh, okay.
No, we can hear you, but introduce yourself first so people know who you are too.
You're right. So I'm Laura Palacios. I came to Kansas City because of Alissia Canady. We met in law school. And, I consider myself a community activist and, a disruptor, period. And I decided I was finished with law school because I was like, yeah, nah. But every time, and this is just the power of network. And like, I'm going to take us back to law school real quick. There's a whole class, 300 people in this law school, five diverse people. Alissia and me made two of those five diverse people. And like, we started talking because she walked by my cubicle. She's like, you listening to DMX? And I was like, yeah. So a lot of when I came to Kansas City, like, how is this neighborhood this way? Like, oh, I think this is a nice neighborhood. And she was like, oh, honey, here's some stuff to read. Here's some things that you need to learn about the city. And when she came back and she started experiencing, I was like, oh, here's the political people you need to talk to, because like, we need to change this. And a lot of the conversations, like, I was learning a lot about the West Side at the time. And I was learning about the Northeast at the time, where mi gente lives. And Alicia's the one that took me to my first Latino grocery store, because I was like, girl, I just need to get my stuff. I don't know where to get it. She's like, I got you. And she took me to the Northeast. It's not there no more, but the little Apple Market. And I was like, yes, this has all my stuff. But it was that conversation of the things that she was seeing while she was at the prosecutor's office, and the things that I was learning about the Latinx community. And we were comparing notes, and we were like, all communities are facing the same BS. Mm-hmm. And so, okay. I had to fill that in, because I feel like as Latinos, we don't talk about these type of conversations. Like, brown and black people need to compare notes, period. And then we need to do something about it. Okay. Alissia, go ahead.
So
I love it. That's amazing. Yes. And 100%. I'm a Northeaster too. Northeast as well. So all about that.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I got a chance to view my community from a different vantage point. One, from living in the hood to leaving the hood to recognizing the good and bad, having something to compare to. Because I traveled, Laura and I we traveled while we were in school. I traveled internationally before I came back. So I had a much broader perspective. And I'm like, dang, it's not all bad. We just need to, touch up some stuff. And so that lens is what really kind of gave me the idea of, it's more than just fixing up buildings. There's some other things, some cultural things that are unique, and there's some cultural dysfunction that we need to deal with too. And so I've had the privilege to work on. I've had the privilege of growing up in it, working on it, and working to push through for transformative change on some of the dysfunction as well, along with good trouble people like Laura Palacios. So that's been like the real path. So when people say like, I don't know about politics, I didn't either. I just knew I wanted change in my community, and I knew that the people who were elected weren't focused on the things that I believed were going to create the change.
Okay. This is a real moment. Like, you get the polished version of Alissia. I'm gonna keep it real. This is how this is gonna go.
I'm Lieutenant Governor. You are going to get the power.
As it should be. But let me tell you. So we're having dinner because, you know, we got to have our girls talk. And she's like, man, I think I'm going to run. I'm choking.
Drink water, please.
Get too excited. We need to calm down.
Yeah, I'm a little excited. She's like, I think I'm going to run because, you know, all these things I'm seeing, and like every time I try to find a solution, the same door keeps on presenting itself. And it's like, only people who run for office can change these things. And I'm like, but I take out my little checkbook because I still carry it around because I'm old school like that. And I'm like, here is your first check, because according to the rules, if you receive a check, you have, I don't know how many days, but X many days to put together your team to make it happen. And so I was like, let's stop talking about this. I believe in you. I believe in the change. Like, I see how you operate. I've seen the things you've overcome. You know, the Alissia that I met, she was like, I was the first business owner. I know you have a lot of entrepreneurs on your show, Deanna. She's the first business owner of color, Black woman on Broadway, like way back when. Who does that? And so, like, there's all these things that I was like, yeah, I mean, if I want representation of real people in office, I believe in it. And I put my checks where my mouth is. So I was like, gave her some money, signed up all my friends to door knock for her. Because, you know, like, Latinos need to be, like, tapped on the shoulder, like, hey, can you do this?
Yes, they do.
You can't just put a post out there.
Too. Yeah, Black people too.
So I'm tapping people on their shoulder, like, hey, next weekend, we're going to have some door knocking things. You want to come? Or we got some phone calling opportunities. You want to come? Mm-hmm. And I call her I tell her this all the time. Like, you are the people's champ. Because the people have made sure to elect someone that represents them. Mm-hmm. All these other people that run, they like getting checks from all the corporations, and that's nice. It helps you. But Alissia Canady has always been the people's champ. I want her to continue to be the people's champ. But I'm going to go ahead and be inappropriate and put that plug in. If you want to support someone, because it is COVID, and like, you can't do door knocking or phone calling, although phone calling, I mean, really, but let's just say you can't, donate to her campaign as little, make it like a weekly thing every time you get a paycheck, whatever, because that goes a long way. Mm-hmm. Okay, I know you got questions, Deanna, so go ahead.
No, Laura, this is great because I love, first of all, the personal story, and then the connection between definitely Brown and the Black communities. That's huge. Like, that is something that we're trying to do always, is unite all our communities, right? Because we do have similar stories. Alissia, when you're talking about your story, it kind of reminded me of my own story, right? It's kind of like you go down this path and you think that there's not really an outlet. You don't know how to enter college. You want to do changes, but you don't know how to make that happen. You don't have the networking. You don't have the access. Like, how do you get all that? And I feel like you and Laura are those what Edgar always likes to say is, you know, the door, you know, you're the door that is open, and we just have to find our way in and for you to help us. But how do you, so first of all, I want to, because I am not into government. I just told her that, Laura. I don't know anything about government. I wish I knew more. What does a lieutenant governor do?
That's the million-dollar question. And when I was asked to run for this position, I asked the same thing. But wait a minute. First, I said no. And I said, wait a minute. What does a lieutenant governor actually do? Because the current lieutenant governor has been missing in action. We have no idea where he's at or what he's been doing. And so it's like, what is this really all about? You know, is it like the vice president, like how Biden was with Obama? He was just there. We didn't really know what he was doing. Just staying out of trouble and just being a good backup if necessary, right? That's all I knew about the number 2 spot. And if that's all it was, I didn't want it. Like, there was too much work I was focused on working on here at the community level, particularly around violent crime and education and housing. Like, those are like my, and entrepreneurship. Those are, you know, supporting small businesses. Those are like my 4 key things. But when I learned about the role of lieutenant governor, guess what the lieutenant governor works on? Education, housing, economic development, and tourism, which is mostly small businesses. So I'm like, what? Okay, so this is really an opportunity for me to work on the things I campaigned about very passionately while I was at the council. And we were told we were preempted by the state from doing it. We got to get the money from the state to do it. We got to get the legislature to pass new statutes for us to be able to do it. And I'm like, well, finally, I can move upstream and work on these same opportunities, because I firmly believe people who are closer to the problem have the best solutions, right? Well, I've been in the thick of things. I know where all the problems are. I've got some good solutions and some great solution-oriented folks that I know how to tap. I just need to position myself at the table, right? So that I can make sure we're making that happen. Whereas right now, there's a huge disconnect between Kansas City and Jefferson City, where the money and the magic is happening. And so while Jeff City's not, you know, I mean, it's not the most exciting place to live, but for 5 months out of the year, I'm willing to roll my sleeves up and work with those others that put themselves out for public office and do the work of the people. And so, you know, the lieutenant governor, and on my website, CanadyForMissouri.com, plug again, if you don't want to type all that out, AC, the letter A, letter C, for LG, FOR, LG, Lieutenant Governor, AC4LG.com, same website, and click on Job of Lieutenant Governor. And it spells out all the statutory roles and responsibilities of the Lieutenant Governor, advising early childhood education, on the board of Missouri Housing Development Commission, which addresses low-income housing tax credits, dealing with the Missouri Finance Board, which deals with large-scale economic development projects, providing public financing for those things, rural economic development. And right now, urban areas and rural areas are impacted the same. Poor schools, lack of affordable housing, high rates of poverty, lack of accessibility of affordable healthcare. We're dealing with the same things. And so you say urban, you think black and brown, you hear rural, you think poor and white. We've got the same issues, and I'm willing to work with everybody who's similarly situated to make sure they have a voice in all these decision-making positions. And the thing that's most near and dear to my heart about the role of Lieutenant Governor is you serve as a chief advocate for seniors and veterans. So right now, in the midst of COVID-19, the most vulnerable populations are senior citizens, people over 65, and black and brown people. That is like, those are my folks. And so while most seniors who are in assisted living or nursing homes or long-term care facilities, they have been isolated for the last 6 to 7 months without any visitation. The current lieutenant governor is supposed to be their chief advocate. It has said nothing about making sure these people were protected. We've heard about all these breakouts of COVID-19 in their facilities, and there haven't been any additional regulations put in place to protect them. And as I've been talking about this on the campaign trail, they're just making changes to create more transparency for those families. But many of them haven't seen their loved one in months, like half the year. That's unacceptable. So we need a lieutenant governor who's present, who really cares about the issues that they're supposed to do in the job, and not just going around the state handing out awards and certificates.
I'm just going to say, I've never heard from the current lieutenant governor.
I was going to ask, who is it?
somebody we don't care about because
I've never heard of that role or
it's a guy named Mike, and from what I hear, he's a nice guy. He was a used car salesman and got involved in politics. And no kidding, he really was a used car salesman. Had a car lot in Jeff City. Got involved in politics. He's got a lot of friends, and he does a lot of good deals for his friends. But when I talk to his constituents, they don't know Mike. And they're happy that I'm running, and they want to get behind me because they're like, we got nothing. His friends got a lot of good deals. We got nothing. And so I'm very optimistic about this election cycle because, again, he wasn't elected. He was appointed by his friend. So Laura's my friend, love her. This is my sister from another mother. She becomes a governor. She was like, hey, Alissia, I got you. I want you to be LG, my number 2 person. I'm like, bet, I'm with you. But I'm going to help her be better. I'm not going to just take that spot and then I'm chilling at the farm.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah, and so that's how this is supposed to go. Absolutely. Divide and conquer, Batman, Robin, let's tag team, whatever it takes. Because the goal is when you get an opportunity like that to serve at that level, you're supposed to serve. And you're supposed to serve the people who you are. But again, you weren't elected. So maybe you don't have that obligation. You don't feel that same commitment.
Let me just talk about serving. And like, Alicia's been on a couple other shows, but she's never been on a show with me.
This is the first.
She's gonna be like, Laura, I ain't gonna do this no more. And she's gonna be like, yeah, ride or die. But I'm gonna tell you, Alicia's been elected before. And she's been faced with like decisions that she knew was like, this is the right thing to do. But you know, everyone, when you run for office, they fill your pocketbooks up. But they have expectations, and they're very clear, like, hey, you're going to get this money. We expect you to vote this way. That's how this works. It's just a political storm, that is. But as a people's champ, you get to make your own decisions and follow what the people want. She's made decisions, or she's been on record, y'all, saying this is not the right move for Black and brown communities for these reasons, and therefore I will not vote for it. That
period.
Like, period. And that's type of leadership that, like, let's just talk about, like, as women, we often get extra slack because we're women. We often get extra all this. As a Black woman, I can't imagine how, like, add the layers. But she unapologetically has said, nah, that ain't right. I ain't voting for that. Does not have my support on record. So if you want to see, like, oh, what kind of leadership does she have? You know, what kind of compass does she have? It's on record. And these are the things that, like, as Black and brown communities, we have to be vigilant about. Because, like, there's that saying, skin folk ain't kin folk. And you know, in the Latinx community, that's some real stuff right there. But if it's on record, y'all, on record, like, that's just, okay, I'm gonna shut up.
So, I mean, and that's something that's unique about this position is that I'm very fortunate to have a body of work that people can look to really be able to say, okay, this is like who she is. She's not selling me something like a used car salesman selling me something. She's telling me something like, hey, this is what I stand for. Because remember, I told you I was focused on these issues: education, housing, entrepreneurship, and, you know, dealing with violence. My campaign platform for Lieutenant Governor focused on the same things because I realized that these issues affect more than just Kansas City. They affect more than just St. Louis. They're affecting Springfield. They're affecting Joplin. They're affecting Cape Girardeau. You know, there are diverse pockets of Missouri. There's a large Latino population down in the Ozarks. Who knew that? Like, I'm just learning all these unique things about what's happening across the state. And so people want to know, who are you? What's your background? I tell them, hey, check me out, because you need to know what you're getting. We're in the middle of a pandemic. So a health pandemic. We're in the middle of an economic, I mean, it's just nuts right now to say the economy. And the longer it takes us to really deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's going to further impact the economy. we've got to deal with these things simultaneously, because guess who's impacted most? Black and brown people. Our health, our pockets, you know what I mean? Our democracy. I mean, we see right now we're in the middle of social justice, you know, people protesting, camping out in front of City Hall against police brutality. I mean, we're seeing issues as far as like how, you know, the immigration matters, which have really kind of taken the back seat, which is interesting during this political cycle. We haven't really heard much about ICE lately. What's up with that? I don't know. Maybe the Black Lives Matter kind of hijacked the spotlight, but it's still a problem. But we've got to make sure that, you know, our health and safety and welfare are at the forefront of whoever wants to lead at this point, because you can't get in that position and just take care of your people like you've been doing, because the people, the voters, there's more of us and we're most impacted, and we've got to have real change and real leadership at the helm going forward. It's critical. It's extremely critical.
So can you tell us, because we even had an incident, we go to Park Hill South with the principal there, and again, everybody's just like it doesn't happen, and it happens every day, like racism, just, I have a lot of young people I work with in the arts community, and they're very much wanting change. How do they either become a part of your campaign as a young person, probably, you know, 12 to 18, and also, do you provide any networking or mentorship when it comes to young people wanting to become something in the political area?
I think, you know, for those that want to get involved in the campaign, I would love to have your help. There's a lot of opportunities right now. As we're leading into the election, we got 4 weeks left, 27 days, 28 somewhere. So yesterday was 28, 27 days. So we got people right now asking for yard signs on election day. We'll need people at the polls. We're going to be sending out text messages to people. Some people, we're going to go knock on their door if we haven't heard from them yet. And I've got a list of about 300,000 people I still need to touch over the next 3 weeks across the state. So if you want to get involved, I can give you some tasks that you can check off your list in a couple hours at a time. So I would love that. Go to my website, Canady for Missouri or AC for LG, and check that out, sign up, and then we can put you to work, plug you in. So for those that would be interested, yes, Alissia Canady, yes.
Yes, and Trinidad is so right. He works so hard, you know, working for immigration and the rights. And we do, the Latino problem sometimes take a back seat, and we don't talk about it, especially here in the Midwest. We feel like, especially in Kansas City, it's kind of like, you know, it's here, it's there, and then nobody really does a whole lot. And I know Trinidad and his community is really working hard. So for the young people that want to help and want to learn about the political side of this issues, are you available in regards to, like, if someone DM'd you or messages you just to want to reach out? Is that something they can do as
yeah, they absolutely.
I'm gonna be a friend here. She got 28 days to win, y'all. Help her win first, please. She does. Last year, she was the keynote speaker of Teach a Girl to Lead, which was specifically for young women who are interested in politics. She does answer the call whenever anyone in schools and education systems and young people want to learn more. She does all of that. But y'all, 28 days. Help her win first. And then DM her and be like, can you talk to my school? Okay.
I love you, Laura. Laura's always keeping it in perspective. We got to remember that 28 days. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, so exactly. And so right now the focus is GOTV, getting out the vote, engaging. Remember, 300,000 people. And it's not going to be just on Facebook. We'll try to get you on Facebook. You might see my ad pop up. If you do, share it, like it, donate, whatever. But we're making real connections, and we're making strategic connections, because my win number in this race is about 1.5 million. We know about 1.2 are going to show up. The other 300,000, I got an idea who I can get to recruit, right? And you registered already. Matter of fact, speaking of which, today's the last day to register to vote. If you have not registered to vote, today's the last day. Go to my website, AC4LG or Canady for Missouri, and at the top of the banner is Missouri voting information. You can register to vote. You can verify your voter registration. But today's the last day. You need to do it before midnight tonight. And we want to make sure everybody's registered. If you're not sure if you registered, go to that site, verify your voter registration status. If you changed your name, like you got married, you moved, you want to make sure you're legit, go in and update that. Today's the last day to do that. So do it before midnight. You got about 4 more hours, 5 more hours. But do it now while I'm talking. You can multitask.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. We all can.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, it's just so much that goes into all of this stuff. But right now, the goal is to engage as many voters across the state. The politics is a science. That's why they call it poli-sci. Laura's a poli-sci nerd. She's a, so I wasn't into the political science. I was into the human side of things because I didn't talk to you about this before. I remember I told you I was trying to figure out how to get to law school, my first generation college grad. So I had like 3 jobs before I got into my professional career. I worked full time. Since my junior year of high school. Who can relate to that? Been working since forever. But I got into the beauty industry. I owned a salon and was a licensed nail tech for a number of years. And, was real estate, and I'm still a realtor to this day, and ran a business and went to school. So I had a lot going on. But I say all that to say that there are people who, you just work a lot. You don't know when you're going to be able to get to go vote. You can go vote early right now, absentee in person, between now and November the 2nd, the day before the election. And the 2 Saturdays before the election board is open on Saturday for you to go vote. And so those days are, pull up my calendar. The election board is going to be open on Saturday on the, what is this, October? I'm in the wrong one.
No, you're right. It's October.
Yeah, it's October. So on October 24th and October 31st, both of those Saturdays, the election board is open for you to vote on Saturdays from like 9 to 1. If you're in Kansas City, Missouri address, not Kansas City, Raytown, Kansas City, Missouri address, Kansas City proper, you go to the Union Station is your local election authority. You can vote early, absentee in person, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And there are 2 Saturdays again, the last 2 Saturdays of this month, the 24th and the 31st, you can vote 9 to 1. So you're working a lot, go vote absentee in person, get it out of the way because stuff happens.
And go ahead and post your sticker with, what's the hashtag, Alissia?
I don't know, tell me.
Your hashtag.
Canady for Missouri?
Yep. Go ahead and post your little I voted sticker, hashtag Canady for Missouri. So we can start a trend here because you heard it here. You can go vote. You can go vote on a Saturday. 2 Saturdays, you can do it.
Yeah, so that's voting absentee in person. And so Black and brown people, we are at high risk for COVID-19. Either you or somebody in your household got diabetes, asthma, all these pre-existing conditions. So you've been exposed to COVID-19, puts others at risk. That is one of the exceptions for allowing absentee voting in person. And so, or if you're just not going to be available in your voting jurisdiction on that day, you're working 3 jobs.
Maybe you're having a baby.
Yeah, having a baby. You don't know for sure, but just in case. So, either you're going to be out of your jurisdiction that day because you may be helping, doing something else or whatever. Or, the COVID-19, you're concerned about being in crowded polling places, spreading germs. You can vote absentee in person. And I encourage everyone to do that for this election cycle so your vote can be counted. It's extremely important that your vote is counted.
Well, and I'm so glad you brought up the absentee voting because I think that, especially for someone like me, I just go on the day and get it done. But this has been such a different time. I actually lost a friend just recently from COVID and just unexpectedly. And my husband has diabetes. His parents have diabetes. And it is very high risk. So they were undocumented and became American citizens about 3 years ago. So for them, voting is so important. But they don't understand the absentee voting, and it's a lot of families like ours that either don't trust it or don't know how to do it. So you explaining that piece of it is vital because I didn't even know that. I've never even just Googled absentee voting because I just felt like my vote wouldn't be counted if I were to do that, because you just hear all these
do it in person. Don't do it. I'm encouraging people to go do it in person. Mail right now is so crazy. I've got some mail. It's taking about 7 to 10 days to get something in the mail right now. It's just nuts. And so I'm encouraging absentee in-person voting. Go vote in person. It's like you would go on election day. You go, you give them your ID, they scan it, they give you a little ballot, you go vote, and you out of there real quick. And it's not as congested and social distant, all that. They're doing a great job with it. Oh, but if you don't live in Kansas City address, maybe you live in the surrounding area. So Liberty, Raytown, Grandview, Lee Summit. So you go to your county office, the county election board. And so if you live in south of the river, is Jackson County Election Board, and you go South Independence. If you live in Clay County, you go to the Clay County Courthouse. Platte County, the same. But I strongly encourage it. Again, you can go to my website. There's a link about voting in person. It gives you the link to look up where your election authority is and the instructions on how to do it.
I am going there tonight because I'm going to do that. I'm free on Saturdays, not free. It was going to be hard. I was trying to figure out how am I going to get from like not working and get there before all that traffic people, you know?
Yeah. So yes, if you have the opportunity, you know, one of these days, you got the last day to vote is November the 3rd, but you can vote between now and then. You can vote up to the day before the election, absentee in person. So there's no excuse, man. Like life happens and people will have all intentions on voting. And then some comes up and like, man, I meant to go do it. And something happened and blah, blah, blah.
And let me just give you perspective. Alissia's first run, she won by a slim mark. Like, how many people was it?
My primary, I was a 5-way primary, and I was the underdog in a 5-way primary. I came in first place in that primary by 12 votes.
12 votes, y'all. 12 votes. You're telling me your vote don't matter. Like, that
your vote matters.
How much it matters.
Made the difference because nobody was surprised that the number 2 person was at the top, but everybody was surprised that I was number 1. And so that changed people's perspective about my viability as a candidate. I think they still would have wrote me off as a fluke if I had came in number 2. But because I beat the person who was favored to win, they was like, oh, and it was competitive. Like they were like, oh, she's serious. And I didn't have no money. They were like, it's serious.
The people's champ. I'm telling you.
Champ. And let's talk about that. Money and politics do go hand in hand because you got to pay for staff, you got to pay for postage, you got to pay for, you know, cool broadcasts like this and all that. So it does cost money. I was very fortunate to have a supportive network of people that, 12, exactly. It was that close. And then I won the general election by less than 200 votes. So it was that tight. Barack Obama only lost Missouri by less than 1%. I won 3,000 votes. He lost Missouri by about 3,000 votes, the whole state. It was that close. For everybody who thought he wasn't gonna make it, if y'all just showed up and did your part, he would have won Missouri. But that's neither here nor there. He still won the election, and you know. But because Obama didn't win Missouri, we were considered a purple state, a swing state, and the Democratic National Convention would put a lot of money into Missouri trying to get us to lean blue. When we lost that year of Obama, that in 2008, they were like, we're done with Missouri. They pulled out. They stopped putting resources in the state, and we're on our own now. So, but
been that way ever since.
Yeah, been that way ever since. Yeah, it's crazy. So we got to show them that we will show up and vote for Democratic leadership, and that, and particularly for those who represent the interests of working families. That's what matters the most right now. But when I talk about people voting down ballot, people vote for president. They might vote for governor because they have a lot of money, do a lot of slick ads. But you got to vote down ballot for the stuff that matters to you, for the lieutenant governor, the secretary of state who controls the voting, the attorney general, who is the chief law enforcement officer for the state, for the state treasurer, who's going to be administering all the CARES Act dollars when they come into the state. When you talk about your prosecutor, your police, your sheriff, your state legislators, you want to know, like right now, they're fighting over the CARES Act money, if we're going to get another stimulus or not, because your legislators at the congressional level are like, who are these people? Hey, show up and do your job. At the state level, the same way. They had a special session at the state level for state legislators, and there was a conversation about, wanting to charge 12-year-olds as adults. Like, really, why are we doing this? Like, if we're trying to reduce violent crime, putting a 12-year-old in general population is a crime. Like, that's crazy. This kid's going to get raped, be privy to, it's just not the right way to do it. Who are these people making these laws? We need to be looking at them and making sure that we're holding them accountable. So voting down ballot, being informed with who's on the ballot makes all the difference. And what does that look like? Go to election authority, look and see who's on your ballot. All right, who are these people? Everybody got a website now. If they don't have a website, they don't deserve your vote.
Check their record.
Yeah, check them out. If they've been in office any length of time, what do they represent? What issues have they taken to stand on and otherwise? So yes, it's real.
And I just thank you for all of that, because again, like I said, I'm probably one of like a lot of people that just don't do that. So when you get to the voting, you're worried about the president, but you're not really concerned about all the people that are really going to affect your life daily, which has been such a learning process for me during this platform. Has just been all the different aspects that we don't even think about. We're just like, oh, if only we have this president, we're good. We should be okay, and we're not. That's the worst part. I have a question just real quick. I know I got to let you go at 7:20 because a lot of people are not voting because of electoral college. Can you explain a little bit about that process?
So the Supreme Court just ruled the electoral college has to vote with the popular vote. The electoral college is appointed by the governor based on the number of votes in the state, yada, yada, yada. And based on your state population determines how many electoral college votes each state gets. The Supreme Court said that you have to, that's good. That you have to, the state has to vote with the popular vote. If the popular vote went with this candidate, then the electoral college has to vote for that candidate. In the last election cycle, there were some states that didn't do that, and it was problematic. And so that was the thing with Hillary. Hillary won the popular vote. Mm-hmm. She didn't win the votes in the electoral college. So the Supreme Court has made a decision that the electoral college votes with the popular vote going forward. So that is a good question.
And like popular vote means what you voted, you as an individual.
Yeah, the majority.
Yeah.
That is so important because people are just not thinking. They're like, the electoral college is going to go Republican. We already know. So why even go to the polls? It doesn't even matter. Like, our votes don't count because of what happened with Hillary. You keep hearing that she got the popular, so why didn't she win? Just people just think in that fashion and they just go with it.
But here's the thing, like, if someone throws you a steak and it's still bloody, are you going to eat it? Like, no. Don't be eating that steak because you are going to get sick and like have boo-boo problems. Don't do that. What you need to do is put that steak on the grill again or something. Like, don't be just giving away your power.
Fake news. So the Russians really screwed up the last election, putting out a lot of fake information about Hillary right before the election. There's another campaign that has been identified that there's a lot of disinformation being targeted at Black and brown people. Facebook really got raked over the coals about it because of how much it impacted the last election. So they put a lot of rules in place. But right now, the information is being pushed through Twitter because hashtag Black Twitter spreads like that. And like, you can't stop it. Like, you can't stop, like with Facebook, they won't let you share fake information once they verify it's fake. They won't let you share it, right? They'll shut your page down and everything. Twitter, once it's out there, it gets retweeted, like, shared, and it's like, boom, gone. And so we have to be mindful about the information we're consuming and accepting as truth. Is the person who's sharing it a reliable source? Mm-hmm. And what is their political lens? Like, we're seeing a lot of Black celebrities that are like, I'm with Donald Trump, Kanye West, and a few others. But then when you talk to them, they're like, yeah, as a businessman, I support him because I get the tax breaks. Oh, okay, you vote in your pockets. I don't have a problem with that, but be transparent. You vote in your pockets. You're not voting based on immigration issues, social justice issues, equity issues, education. You're not voting on those. You vote in your pockets. So let's just be clear. I'm voting this way because it benefits me, not y'all. Oh, but you don't want to say that part. So that's the difference in how we're sharing this information and being clear on what well we're drinking from. Like, what's the source of this information and who does it benefit?
Thank you so much. I know you got to go in 2 minutes. Any last words, you and Laura? Alicia, want to go first?
I can stick around for like 3 more minutes because I got some things to tell you.
So this election is important because it's going to decide what democracy looks like for our kids. Like, I was raised on voting saying your ancestors died for the right to vote, and they did. And so I voted because of that. I recognize this generation is so far removed from that narrative. They like, listen, everybody I know is they always had the right to vote. Like, my great-great-grandmother had the right to vote. So they don't share that same conviction. But what I say to you now is that the voting decisions you make today is going to determine what kind of America and democracy your kids are going to inherit. Because right now on this ballot, Amendment 3 attempts to try to change the way your household is counted for funding. They only want to count the number of adults that are registered to vote in the household. Well, in Black and brown families, sometimes it's only one adult and 4 or 5 or more kids. So if you're only counting those that are registered to vote and not everybody else, that's federal funding that's not coming to your community. That's a problem. And guess who most impacts? Black and brown families. Yeah. It affects 28% of Black families, 54% of brown families, because brown families have more kids in the house. And so good Catholics, you know, it's one of those things. But we cannot allow this type of legislation to go forward that is eroding our rights, or elect leaders that are not going to protect our rights and are not going to look out for our financial interests. This current president is saying he's not going to look at a stimulus package after the election when folks are hungry, facing eviction, unemployment's run out, but you're not going to provide them economic relief for political reasons. It's time out for selfish leadership. We've got to elect real change. And I ask for people's support on November the 3rd or before, because you know how to go early now, because we got to do this work. And I'm not willing to give up until we have good leadership in place, me or otherwise.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here. You gave me so much information. I'm ready to share it all, and I'm doing an absentee.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank
All right.
You. Good night. Laura.
What's up, girl? Didn't I tell you this was going to be good?
This has probably been, so there's so many phenomenal people we have on here. So many great, even this morning, Dioslin had such a great thing with Schlegel. And just Alissia, just giving her personal story, it hit mine home so close. It was just like talking to my mom or like talking to my best friend, you know, like, yeah, it's just like family.
No, and like that's her all the time. Like that, she keeps it real. That's one of the reasons why I think she's the strongest candidate. One of the reasons why I've always supported her and will continue to support her. But I just want to like talk to our community. Like,
you got the floor.
We do not, like, I can't tell you how many spaces I've been in where Latino people are like, well, you know, I just don't get into politics. Like, I don't know nothing about it. And that's okay. Like, we can know nothing about it. But informing ourselves is necessary, because there is not one move in our life that we can make without being politically touched. Meaning, you can't buy a house, you can't own a business, you can't, bid for government contracts when you have a business if you don't understand politics and who you elect and who you have represent you. And, I've seen Alissia and how she has shown up for the Latino community when, like, I've called her like, hey, I know you're my friend and I'm asking you from like a higher place, if there is one. I know that like maybe you're going to tell me no, but like here's the situation. And like sometimes, it's within her realm to be able to advocate for the community as a whole. Or sometimes she's just been like, here's what you need to do. And that information is invaluable. But like we have to care about who we elect and who represents us and how accessible they are before we just like give our vote away. And I just don't think we do that enough as a Latino community. Like, we go to church every Sunday and we let them tell us what to do. Like, why? Because they're not always, I don't know, the churches I've been to, they don't always look like us. Just because, God ordained them didn't mean that they are living our life. So I think that that's the plug I wanted to make. That, like, regardless of who, of course, you know who I want you to vote for, but regardless of who you vote for along the whole elections, yes, sign up for those civics classes. Like, please inform yourself and, like, make your voice, like, you guys, if Black and brown numbers are put together in the whole United States population, we outnumber the majority. Like, I refuse to call myself a minority anymore. We are the majority, but we don't show up in power where it counts because we're not voting, we're not doing the things. So, like, let's stop that. Like, come on. We need to get ourselves together. So I wanted to make that plug. I thank you so much for, like, I know when I called you and I was like, hey, I got this idea. You were like, yeah. But I was like, man, I really want people to understand the power of, like, casting your vote, the power of getting informed, the power of having these conversations. Like, we ain't got to agree. It's okay. But guess what? At least we have informed conversations.
Yes.
About why what matters to us and why it matters, and, like, what kind of things we want to see.
No, Laura, I appreciate this so much, and I appreciate you bringing this topic and bringing Alissia here with us because it was so needed. I again, I'm one of those people. I just go to vote, do the president, and never really even worried about anything else. But then when the day-to-day life comes, it's like, what the hell? Who is this person? Like, what? How did this happen? You know, and it's like, shoot, I probably voted for this person. But it's so important even for our kids, so that we're teaching them what they need to do when they're ready, right? And I want to do that. And so shout out to you, Tina, for taking those civic classes. You know, that's extra time for you, but that's also informative that you're sharing probably with other people you know. And this is why it's so important for the networking, Laura, and you doing that and bringing the voices out. And I'm supporting 110%.
I want to vote for you one day, Deanna. Like, let's keep it real. Like, let's look across all of the positions in Kansas City and across the state. Like, how many Latinos do we even have representing us?
Yeah, exactly. And when you look at City Hall, it's like, how many Latinos are there? You know, it's
well,
like,
thanks to Quentin Lucas, Honorable Quentin Lucas, Mayor Lucas, we got some staff in there, which, like, this is the most I've seen in, like, all my 10 years of living in Kansas City. But, like, y'all, we got power. And, like, sometimes it's as easy as, like, joining a campaign. You know what? Let me just join a campaign, see if I like it. And, like, you might decide, like, man, I don't like that. I don't like talking to people. I don't like hearing about what their problems are. I don't like trying to figure out how to troubleshoot. So I'm not about that life. And that's okay. But if you never try it, if you never join something, like, you're never going to know the real experience. You're just going to have this, like, idea of what you think it is. On the other hand, you might join the campaign and be like, yes, I'm about that. Like, I'm ready. Like, let's do this. Sign me up for the next school board election. I don't know.
I was just going to say that watching Randy Lopez and then watching Maite Salazar do it, you know, from behind. And that's the first time I've ever seen anyone do it that I've known. And it was like, wow, you can do this.
Yes.
You can do this. And no, Laura, I appreciate you so much.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for sharing your platform and having this conversation. Alissia Canady for Lieutenant Governor.
And we're going to be on Instagram, all the streaming platforms. It'll be on Facebook, so we can reshare again. So please share. There's lots of information that Alissia and Laura provided that will just get you to the polls immediately. Like, this Saturday is coming up, so you don't even have to worry about going with a bunch of people. Just get it done. So thank you so much, Laura, and thank you for bringing on Alissia, and I just appreciate you and everything you do.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.